If you got over the big hurdle that was spending a little too much money on the Switch 2, maybe you also got over the additional hurdle that was spending even more money on Mario Kart World. If you did, you've probably tried the free roam mode by now. To those unfamiliar, Mario Kart is a game where you usually race around on set circuits, and there's nothing else to do outside of those areas. In the latest installment though, they made a whole world for you to explore and drive around in as you please. That sounds super cool and all, right? But getting a mode like this begs the age-old question, how alive is this world that they've created for us? Is it something that feels like it has a mind of its own, like it exists even without any player input? Or is it something more akin to a shell without its host, poetry? I did a similar video not too long ago, diving deep into the game Infinity Nikki to see how alive it felt, and now it's time to do the same to Mario Kart. I never thought I'd say those words. So, where do we begin? As the map is huge and intertwined, the focus is on the whole world, after all. I decided to mostly drive around the map and make observations rather than focus on one individual town or city like I did in Infinity Nikki. I spawned in far south, so that's where I decided to begin. The first thing I noticed was that colliding with cars and pedestrians doesn't really do much. You both jump, the NPCs kind of wave around a little, and then they're on their way. Just being still in front of traffic, however, they don't bump into you, but instead just wait calmly for you to move. They don't even honk or seem annoyed at you, which is pretty unrealistic that there's barely any road rage. I do like that if you honk and wave at people though, they wave back at you. It's very cute and wholesome. While driving around the faraway oasis area, I spotted some wildlife. There were some bison and birds in the sky. All the bison do is run in circles. They don't react at all when you honk, and while you do dramatically collide if you get in their path, they quickly get back on track after. As for the birds, I was unable to test colliding with them since I couldn't get up in the sky. I did try though by driving in the direction of a mountain to see if I could get on top of it and drive off the edge into a bird, which took me to the Dino Dino Jungle area. Here I was too busy catching this star and test driving it into a car, and then witnessing said car catch airtime and disappear when colliding with this ramp I drove onto, to realize that this ramp was actually a gigantic dinosaur. So yeah, the Dino Dino Jungle area has dinosaurs roaming around. Who would have thought? Like other wildlife witnessed so far, they have predetermined paths and basically just walk or fly in circles. If you get stepped on by one, you get flattened, and that's about as exciting as it gets. While following one of my new dino friends around, I noticed that the grass does give way for your vehicle, which is a small but important detail to making a game feel more alive. However, the same can't be said for any bigger plants, which is very interesting to me. Maybe because there's a bigger chance of you driving onto grass when on an actual circuit and driving in a race, which is the main point of the game. So, speaking of the races, I made my way to the actual Dino Dino Jungle circuit, and interestingly enough, you can find characters racing around here and not as many regular cars. This is something I haven't seen on the outskirts so far, so it was pretty cool to see that the type of NPCs in the area vary a little bit depending on whether you're on a circuit or not. There are these little binoculars around that you can use to view the area nearby from up high, and while observing the circuit through this, I happened to notice a car pull up to Yoshi's, which is a little restaurant chain in this world, which intrigued me, so I went to check. Here, people sometimes stop in the parking spots to take a little break and then leave again. I expected them to maybe get out and get some food or rest on a bench, but they sadly don't do that. Nearby, however, I also found Toad and Shy Guy wearing backpacks and chilling on a bench. This is pretty cool as it indicates they're traveling, and this is just one of their stops on the way, which is a neat little touch. After waiting there a little while to see if anyone stopping by Yoshi's would exit their car, which they never ended up doing by the way, I decided to keep moving. As I was pretty far south, I decided to move a bit more north towards Koopa Troopa Beach. But first I saw a cop car and wanted to see if they reacted differently to me crashing into them, which they don't. Anyway, onto the beach. Here, I found backpacking Shy Guys and Toads out on their travels along the sidewalks, so I decided to watch one of them for a little while to see what they ended up doing and where they ended up going. I had to keep my distance as they'd stop and dance around if I were too close. I bring so much happiness to people. It seemed at least this specific Shy Guy was walking in circles, but I did see another one come up from the beach and walk down the street, so I followed that one next to see if anything changed. While waiting, I observed the surrounding wildlife. There's crabs dancing on the beach and seagulls flying around in the sky, but also chilling by the road. If you drive close to them, they fly away before returning to the same spot again. We slowly made our way to a nearby Yoshi's, by which I also spotted a backpacking Yoshi. As a side note, it's not just Shy Guys and Toads. toads. Here, the shy guy I'd been following walked back onto the beach. I assume this is the route, walking along the beach, then along the sidewalk, back down to the end of the beach, rinse, repeat. It's interesting to see how much more life there is in this area compared to the Dino Dino Jungle, but it also makes sense in a way that a beautiful sunny beach would have more activity in comparison. There's even different kinds of boats cruising around on the water, which really adds to making it feel lively. I made a quick stop by the Yoshis to see if anything was different there compared to the one we saw earlier, and such is the case. The architecture is different and looks to be an actual dine-in restaurant with food trucks alongside the main building. There's also people enjoying the sun and the view on some benches nearby. After eating some food from the food truck, I got kinda gassy and ended up boosting myself into a bench, bothering some people sitting on it. They didn't seem to mind though. This place is almost a bit too friendly. I decided to observe a little while. This game has a day and night cycle, and I wanted to see if any of these people would leave when nighttime came around. But it seems day and night is only for visual purposes, and the NPC behavior isn't affected by it. While by the water, I decided to explore that a little too. The first thing I did was obviously try to get ran over, which led to some simple collisions. The boat I collided with was big enough for me to board, and on it there were more backpacking NPCs. Enjoying the view, I caught some planes dropping item boxes onto the world. It's definitely a gameplay sort of thing to keep free roam more exciting, but it's fun to see it be aircrafts actually dropping things off sometimes instead of the boxes simply spawning in at random every time, so that's nice. Similarly, there's also various hostile creatures here and there spitting out or throwing projectiles to keep you on your toes. Not only on the water, of course, but everywhere on the map. After completing a loop with a boat, I was going to continue my journey north before I saw Koopa out and about. I followed him for a while and tried to catch up enough to bump into him, which made nothing happen. I tried a little more until we ended up by a bus stop on the side of the road, so I decided to take a break there. Here, I saw a toad and some shy guys chilling on a bench, though not with any backpacks this time. I also saw a car driving on the grass, which was new to me, but when I tried to find the car, it was already gone, so I went to the area where I first saw it coming from. Here, I instead found Nabbit. I tried for a little while to catch him, and amazingly enough, a cop car, of all things, got in my way. But in the end, I did what the cops failed to do, and I ran him over. Done with that, I once again got on the road and was about to head north before I saw a bus by the bus stop, bearing the print Rosalina Bus Tour that some NPCs were boarding. Tour is definitely correct because I saw quite a few things while following this bus. And yes, of course I followed the bus. I had to see where it went. Along the route, I spotted what seemed to be a camper van with a fire and made a mental note of it so that I could return later. I also spotted someone on the road marked as target, which I assume is some sort of mini mission where I need to chase them down and collide with them maybe? Stubborn as I am though, I ignored this in favor of following the bus. After 15 minutes of following it, that had consisted of us circling faraway oasis and then moving back south to where I first started by Dino Dino Jungle, the bus collided with the giant dinosaur and disappeared. Oh my god. I sat in shock for a second because what do you mean I followed this bus for 15 real-life minutes? One whole in-game day, according to the day cycle, only for it to vanish at the mere touch of a dinosaur! But something I spotted along the route satisfied my curiosity somewhat. Ahead of us, I spotted another tour bus that wasn't there earlier, which means it must have came from a different direction and turned onto the same road as us. This was also proven to be a correct guess when I later saw that tour bus turn right where we instead turned left. So it's confirmed that there are different tour buses out there with different routes, which is really cool. As other things so far have been moving in circles, my theory is that the tour buses also move in circles along a set route. This makes sense to me as they're tour buses specifically, and not buses meant to take people from point A to point B, so I'm gonna assume that's where we would have ended up again in the end. I am very curious to know how long the bus would have continued on for though, but I didn't want to spend however long it'd take to find a new bus that would not go past the dinosaur area and then follow it all the way around. Oh well. After taking a moment to recover from the immense disappointment, I made my way back to the campfire I spotted earlier. As expected, there's a few backpackers sitting around the fire relaxing. Something I find strange about this though is that it's meant to be a warm area, but they still have a fire going in the middle of a sunny day. If you're gonna have a day cycle, I feel like the world itself should change with it too and not just be a lighting thing, but the campfire does look really cozy at nighttime though. Nearby, I also spotted some giraffes. These were of course walking in a set path, but at least they're cute, so I hung out with them for a moment. At this point, I'd realized that I clearly clearly can't be trusted with just quickly traveling through the map and noting interesting things down, as I get distracted easily and want to investigate everything. So I had to set harsher limits for myself, or I just end up traveling across the whole map. And it's a big map. So in order to limit myself but still get some variety, I opened up the map and studied it. While in the south, I'd gotten a taste of the thick jungles, open plains, and warm beaches. So I wanted to find a few places different from this and make a beeline there without getting sidetracked unless something really stood out. I decided to first go to snowy DK Pass, then to Boo Cinema up north, turn west to get to Dry Bones Burnout, down to Shy Guy Bazaar, then southwest to Whistle Stop Summit, and end in Central Peach Stadium. When leaving Faraway Oasis, I stumbled upon some elephants, zebras, and ostriches, which is worth mentioning. On my way to DK Pass, I happened to drive through Cheep Falls, which has beautiful orange leaves falling from the trees. It also started raining, which was very cozy but also very fun, as it was raining item boxes at the same time. After finally reaching the snowy area of the world, the first thing I noticed was that the toads here wear winter gear. The Shy Guys and Yoshis that are out and about don't wear anything special though, but it's nice to see there's some people looking out for their health. I also saw a moose on the side of the road. This area is gorgeous. Ugh, look at the cabins. DK Pass is a ski slope circuit, but what's important isn't the circuit itself, but rather its environment. The trees are naturally different here from the other locations so far. The jungle had ones that fit the area, so did the savannah, so did the beach, etc. There's of course snow, and the architecture consists of cozy wooden cabins, as you'd expect. Happy with my brief observations, I continued north yet again to Boo Cinema as planned. On my way out of DK Pass though, I saw a Goomba ice skating around, as well as a few Shy Guys snowboarding down the hill. I wanted to check if Pauline's idle animations changed while in cold weather, but this was not the case. However, while waiting for the idle animation to happen, I could see her breaths in the air, which emphasized how cold the area is. It was a cool little addition. Get it? Cool? Ugh, that's so funny. Once I got to Boo Cinema, the atmosphere changed. Well, visually, but the soundtrack didn't. It seems to shuffle between all the tracks in the game, so I still had upbeat jazz playing while here, but no matter. There's a heavy fog hanging over the area, making everything just a little more dim, even in the daytime. There's rickety, broken bridges all across the deadly swamp, and all the trees in the area are dead. The cinema itself is run down but huge, towering high over everything else. The inside is of course a cinema, but there's more to it than that, to the point of it being my favorite track in the game so far. Granted, I haven't had the opportunity to play them all yet, but the way you jump into the silver screen and ride the film reel itself is super neat. As this place is quite dead, but on purpose, there wasn't much else to check out, so I continued onward to Dry Bones Burnout. This place is also a little bit dead, but in a completely different way. This is instead because of the lava everywhere, so there's not much in terms of plants. This contrast is especially strong considering that I drove through Acorn Heights to get here, which was covered in greenery, and you even drove across gigantic tree trunks there. In the circuit, you can find dry bones walking around, of course, and there's giant bones all over, but they're decorated in Dia de los Muertos patterns, which I think adds a lot to the area. I do love that even places in similar regions are so distinct from each other, as for example, Bowser's castle nearby is more industrial and dark in comparison. Next, I moved on to Shy Guy Bazaar, which is like an oasis in the desert, and it's decorated as such. There's cacti, palm trees, and flowers, and the architecture itself is of course also different from what we've seen before. As the name would imply, this is a bazaar, so there's little market stalls ran by Shy Guys. This area is quite small, so there's not much more to see, but it's a very beautiful place. On the outskirts, in the desert, you can find armadillos, huge sandworms, and dromedaries hanging around. While moving south toward Whistle Stop Summit, I was riding the train tracks as I sometimes do, when a question I've been asking myself up until now was answered. Are there actually trains in this game? And yes, there are. Whistle Stop Summit itself is basically a big train station, with people waiting on benches and train tracks winding around everywhere. There's also coal here that's presumably used to power the trains, so that's a neat little detail. Once done here, I finally started my journey toward our final stop. On the way, I drove through Crown City, which was of course a city, and it was pretty busy. Lots of traffic and pedestrians in the middle of lots of skyscrapers and billboards. I can imagine coming here in the nighttime, it would be pretty beautiful. I eventually got to the world's gigantic romantic centerpiece, Peach Stadium. It was obviously surrounded by pink peach trees, and it's probably the most colorful place we've been to in this video. There's even a pink Yoshi's here. I had a little theory pretty early on that the food they serve sometimes changes depending on location, and I think this confirms it, as they're serving a pink strawberry cake here. The stadium itself is of course a pretty big circuit, with a park area outside full of trees and flowers, and a star-shaped pond across the road. On the bottom level, there's a terminal with trains stopping to let people on and off, which adds to making this place feel like a popular spot to visit, and I definitely understand why such is the case. If you hadn't checked the map and didn't already know that this place is the centerpiece, you could definitely make an educated guess from how grand this place is. And so ends my travels through Mario Kart World. I could have kept going for a while, but this video would have been very long, and I feel like we still got a decent grasp of the game. Last time I made a video like this, I created a scoring system to decide how alive a certain game feels. I think that scoring system is better suited for story-driven games, however, once we're able to actually interact with other characters and the world around you past simply driving through it, so I won't be using it for this game. Overall though, it's strange to notice how many additional details are in the game, while you at the same time notice how many are not in the game. For example, driving through bushes does nothing, but driving through grass does. NPCs and cars stop for you in traffic, but they don't react in any other way. There's a day and night cycle, but it doesn't affect the world outside of its visuals. And it changes in a second, like someone flipped a light switch instead of being a natural progression. On the surface, driving through it as you're meant to, the world looks fairly alive and exciting. There's much variety in the different regions, and there's a lot of NPCs moving through, but if you spend too long in one place, the illusion quickly falls apart. It feels more like a playground filled with moving parts than a world with living, breathing people. A racing game that pulls this off really well is Riders Republic. What they do to make their world feel more alive is to include the ghosts of other players in the world. Basically, they store other players' movements across the map, almost like recordings, and then play those out in the world. So there's still natural movement despite those players not actually being in your game session. All that being said, I'm of course aware that Mario Kart is a cartoonish game and is not meant to be extremely realistic, but it's still interesting to examine just how far they decided to go with the free roam mode. To be fair, while lacking in a lot of areas, it's still much more detailed than I'd normally expect a Mario Kart game to be, so make of that what you will. Who knows, maybe one day we'll get a game like this with even more life inside of it. Thank you for watching.